Most people think that paying their credit card bill on the due date is all that they need to do to keep their credit score intact and extremely high. And I'm here to let you know right now that is not the full story. And I know you're wondering why, because your credit score is dropping, and I'm actually going to prove it to you in this video. If you're not paying very close attention to your statement closing date, you could be harming your credit way worse than what you're doing, and you're not even realizing it. So let me break down a real example in this video. So go grab your pen and paper, and without further ado, let's dive in. So where did this stem from? This actually stemmed from a real life situation, hence how a lot of these videos come about. One of my clients came to me and she told me that her credit score had dropped over 43 points in the process of me fixing it, and she had no idea why. So at first I was thinking, did another negative hit her credit report, or did something come back on? And I immediately thought that maybe a collection came back on her credit report, because you have to understand, and I'll make another video about this topic, but when it comes to charge-offs and really collections, a lot of the secondary lenders that hold on to the debt that's not actually theirs, but they try to collect that like they're their original creditors, they'll sometimes see that the negative came off the report and they'll resell the debt to get it put back on your report. So it's kind of like dangling something over your head saying that you still have to come to me and pay what you owe, and then we'll work something out of that. So that's immediately what I thought. But when I actually checked, I found out the real reason. I was like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. Your utilization increased dramatically. So I asked for the full story, and she told me, she was like, well, you know, I have a credit card right now, and the credit limit is $1,000. And it was at $1,000, but I was making my payment on the due date like I always do. So I asked her, what was the due date? She said the 15th. Yeah, so after she made the payment, I asked her, I said, so when did you actually start using the card again? She said immediately after she paid the payment and everything, she started using the card again. So ding, 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 the red light started going off in my head, and I said, okay, so this might be a statement issue more than anything. So then she says that, a few days later, her notification shot up that her credit utilization had really went up really high, and it went past the limit of her credit card. She said it was like at $1,200, and that was causing her score to drop significantly. And then on top of that, the credit card issuer told her that she was not able to use the card. And she's like, yo, I paid the payment. Why are you guys doing this to me? Why can't I use my card? So before I actually wanted to really dive deeper to make sure that to really say that I was right, I asked her. So I said, if your due date is on the 15th, when is your statement closing date? And she said that she wasn't sure, but she said she thought it was possibly the 20th, but she didn't understand why that was a thing. And then immediately she realized her mistake. So basically, here's what happened. She paid her credit card on the 15th, right? Which keeps her account in great standing with the bank. But guys, you have to understand, but when she kept spending before the statement closing date, which was the 20th, that means that the bank reported the new higher balance to the credit bureaus, okay? So that means that when everything got sent to the credit bureaus, aka her data, it showed that her utilization was over 100, causing her score to drop significantly. So with that being said, you have to understand the due date, ladies and gents, okay? Please understand this moving forward. The due date is when the banks expect at least, at the minimum, your minimum payment, all right? So when you see that $10,000 balance that you owe in consumer debt, and it's like, oh, you can pay right now $230, that is your minimum payment. And this just in a nutshell just prevents late fees and missed payments. Those 30, 60, 90 days that go on your credit report, yeah, those things. It just holds you over until the next month. Now, when it comes to the statement closing date, all right, this is when the banks report your balance to the credit bureaus, and this is what actually affects your credit score. So the banks want their money to avoid any late fees, and then the statement closing date is when they report to the credit bureaus to state what was actually due and used and all the above. If you use your credit card after the due date from the banks and before the statement closing date, the banks are still going to report the brand new balance even if you already made a payment. And I know you're probably thinking, yo, that's not fair. That doesn't make any sense. I did everything I was supposed to do as a responsible adult. They shouldn't do that. They should just report blah, blah, blah. Yo, I get it. I understand. Yo, you have to understand. I understand, but you have to understand life is not fair. You didn't read everything when it came to it, but I know that this wasn't taught to all of us. So this is why I'm going to give you a really, really good example and break down. We're going to break down even more right here, right? So just hang on. Let's just go to the example and go to the board. All right, so I just wanted to show you a visual representation because I know there's a lot of people out there that always show you, or not show you, but tell you what to actually do. So I actually want to break it down right here, give you a good example, give you some numbers, and then show you how you can maneuver moving forward to why your utilization keeps going up and why it doesn't make any sense to you. So let's go ahead and get to it. Go ahead and get into it. All right. So we're going to use the same dates from my client's example. So let's just say your due date is on the 15th, right? And right here is your balance. This is also your credit limit as well. So let's say your credit limit is $1,300, and let's say you maxed it out, you know, that the whole month. And you're like, you know what? I got paid on the 14th, so I'm going to pay that whole $1,300 off. So boom, you immediately spend $1,300, and now you're back down to zero with the banks. But you have to forget, but you forgot that on the 20th is when they're going to report everything. So in this stage right here, I like to call it the limbo stage, right? Because these are the stages where it's so easy to mess up your credit profile. So with that being said, you paid everything down. Now you're at zero on the 15th because you paid it down. You went to the 16th and you 17th. Let's say you had some bills come out, you got some groceries, things like that, and you got a whopping $1,200 added onto your credit balance again, right? So now you have $1,200, but you're thinking, yo, I'm good because I paid everything like I was supposed to, but you forgot about the 20th. So now the 18th, 19th, the 20th, now your bank is going to issue everything to the credit bureaus. And they're going to say, hey, you know, he or she paid down $1,300, but then on the 17th, they reported $1,200. So I need you to report $1,200 to their statement balance, okay? And to their statement, the statement that you actually get. Because if you ever notice, when you get your emails, you always see that you always have a statement. So now when you get everything, you're seeing that you're like, yo, what's going on? Why does it say I owe $1,200 and my credit score went down 43 points? It's because you didn't give the card time to report, okay? And I know it doesn't make any sense as far as that's not fair. I did everything I was supposed to. Yeah, but you're dealing with two separate entities, okay? Two separate ones, okay? The banks, credit bureaus, they're not one. The bank is just to make sure you don't get any late payments. The credit bureaus is to make sure that your credit score either goes up and down. They're the author and the finisher of everything. So this is what I want you to do moving forward. And the same thing that I told my client, which I told her, yo, you're going to pay everything down on the 15th, right? So this bad boy is going to be a zero, okay? Then when you get to the 16th, you're not going to use it. The 17th, you're not going to use it. The 18th, 19th, 20th, you're not going to use this card. I don't care if your statement closing day is the 25th. You do not use that card in between that time, okay? You give them time to report, because sometimes they will report on the 18th. Sometimes they'll report on the 19th. You still don't use it until then. Why? Because you don't want to leave anything up to chance, okay? This is what I do. I've always been super good at it. Up until this point, nothing has changed. So this is what I want you to do. So you don't have a $1,200 balance reporting when you already paid it on the 15th. So now you're over here looking crazy, okay? And I know some of y'all probably want that still doesn't make any sense. I should be able to use my card whenever you want to. Yeah, you can use your card whenever you want to. I promise you. You can use it on the 17th if you want. But if you want your credit score to go down on the 20th, then be my guest. I'm not your pops. I'm not trying to stop you from doing anything. I'm just trying to show you the way on how you're actually supposed to do this. Okay? So make sure that you do all of this. And I know a lot of other people also think, well, I have bills that come out in between those days and I have to use my credit card or things of that nature. This is why you have to call all these lenders up and tell them to change specific dates, okay? Even if they don't, you can always call the credit card lender and tell them, hey, I need to change my due date for the following month, all right? So let's say it's the 15th and you have stuff coming out and you can't do that because the 16, 17, 18 doesn't work for you. Then change it to the 23rd, change it to the 22nd. So then your statement closing day is gonna be the 27th. Change it to the 1st, and your statement closing day is going to be the 6th. You see what I'm saying? But make sure that you always ask for these dates, okay? Because this is going to help you 100%. So again, with all that being said, I just want to recap how to avoid this issue. Know when your due date and your statement closing date is, okay? You need to find these dates online on the banking portal, or you have to call in. Whatever you have to do, get it done. And the next thing I need you to understand, to make the payments before the statement closing date, okay, to ensure low balances get reported or zero balance. Next, avoid spending right after the due date. Wait until your statement closing date is actually used up, it's there, and then use it the day after if possible, okay, or change the dates. Next, set alerts. Some banks will give you notifications of your statement closing date. Others won't, but you have to make sure that you utilize either Siri or Google to remind you every single month of what to do and what not to do. Because you have to understand that these banks sometimes are going to tell you and they're not. But understanding how the due date and the statement closing date works is what's going to keep your credit score high and prevent you from unnecessary drops. Again, I want to thank you guys for stopping by. Just make sure that you use this. I really hope that this helps you, especially with the visual and things of that nature. So find out, your dates, and also send this to somebody that doesn't know anything about credit as well, so we both, or all of us, never fall into this trap again. Again, I want to appreciate you guys for stopping by. Now utilize those dates correctly, all right? And until next time, ladies and gentlemen.